Hey, my beautiful badass beings. I'm actually gonna be jumping on in a little bit, well, not a little bit, maybe a little bit later with this gorgeous, beautiful being. Ana Naturalista! That sounded like I had a whole nother flavor to it. So Anna and I are going to be jumping on a little bit later to jump in and dive into DNA activation and some of the cool, crazy awesomeness that we'll be doing in Europe. As we've gotten a lot of questions, we have a 2-day event coming up in the beginning of June here in San Diego for peeps that with actually some ambassadors from Dominator. That's not what I want to talk about right now. I have like a 20-minute window. This is actually my new house for those of you who have not. We haven't really shown that much of the inside space. Anna's living in the guest area right now. So I'm going to head outside, and I actually have something that I do want to talk about for probably like the next 20 minutes or so, or however long I get to share with you guys until I have until I have a client call that I get to jump on. And so I'll try to find some space back here that has some good lighting and whatnot. So for those of you who what's interesting is I had this come up. I had this inspiration come up, and whenever inspiration comes up, I get to share, because otherwise, you know, it's still there for me. And today I had a call with 2 of my badass personal clients, Guy and Alon. And what was interesting, I found this so amazing and interesting and curious as to, and thinking this is probably something that a lot of people don't actually ever get to learn how to shift their perception on. And as I get talking to Guy and Alon, their big thing was like, Marce, like, you know, we don't have, like, life is so fucking awesome. We've shifted so much in this flow and this effortless and this ease, all these amazing opportunities showing up with their business, all these things happening, that it's like, well, you know, we don't really have anything to share with you. And there was all these thoughts that had come up, like, well, should we reschedule our call? Like, what could it be? What could I talk about? What could I do? And they were noticing they're seeking for something to be there, to be able to have something to converse with me about. Actually, I'm going to move this just a little bit, because that's probably a little bit better. We'll be by the pool in the shade. So something that had, as we notice and we look at, is that we kind of have these stories or these ideas, right? That we have to be experiencing struggle, or we have to be experiencing challenges to be able to up level, or to be able to evolve. I'm just going to set this into play. And and I had told them first thing was that they got to go to, there's a coaching that I've actually done for my peeps. It's called the LOC Law of Ascension and the Receiving Effect. They got to dive back into that. But what's interesting is this literally tells us, my favorite calls with my peeps are the ones where they like have nothing. Like, so it's just literally how their state of being is operating is where we can see the micro things that are actually existing. So this brought up the question, why would we get to feel, and John, maybe you can ask me what sentence you're referring to, but why would we get to feel or have the thought that there's a thought like that I have to show up a certain way, that I have to have struggle to be able to evolve, to be able to grow, to have a different space of evolution, or that I'm like, maybe it's a money issue. Am I actually going to get my worth if I don't have something that I got to dig into the shit? And this is the whole point, is did we accomplish what we wanted, which is you're living in fucking awesomeness. You're living in ease and joy and grace, and everything's effortlessly coming to you. So this is where most people don't see how they shift the parameter. A program that they'd come from was that there has to be something hard going on, or there has to be pain involved to be able to grow and evolve from. Now, the level of evolution that we moved into is that understanding that pain is just a part of our process, but suffering is a choice. Pain is, so when you go through your conscious state of understanding, you're like, well, wait, like people will always ask me, Marci, did you ever experience shit? And I'm like, well, I don't consider shit. Because I always see it as my gift, because it is what it is, and everything evolves from the actual energy creation of love. It comes through our parameters, our perceptions, our attachments, our emotions, all these things that create the stories that turn it into darkness, which is actually the suffering that hurts us. And when we actually just see what's there, then we can actually break it down and see it for what it is, which is love. So the suffering is just the thoughts and the stories that are attached to that. Yet that emotion gives us the gift of feedback that something's not working and there's something we actually get to shift. So in realizing, oh, there's probably some ways then that I've let myself not receive even more. So what I brought them to the question to in looking at is that is there a place, like a guy had mentioned that for about 7 weeks, we shared this the other day on their podcast, that about 7 weeks he was in pure bliss after Colombia. And what that brought up for me instantly is like, oh, cool, that's when you hit your comfort zone of how much love you could receive, how much joy and awesomeness and abundance you could handle before the little tiny things were showing up, that's when we would have caught it in our awesomeness to go. So what most people do is they'll hit their level of awesomeness, and internally, because that's as much as they believe they're deserving or worthy of, then what they get to do is they get to bring themselves back down into that comfort zone by creating shit. Instead of, when you're in awesomeness and then notice the moment that you feel the starting to be out of alignment, that you don't feel good. I always say, make it really super simple and easy, that if you're not experiencing awesomeness, that's when we go internal and we go, oh, like why? Like what would I be experiencing that is taking me from that? Is it the thought? Is it the perception, etc.? What am I feeling? Why is that? Well, what do I want? If I want more connection, I want more awesomeness, I want more love, it's like, like that's how I actually get to move now, lean into that, what was coming up as the comfort zone, and then allow ourselves by taking the action to move through it, whether it be being honest with connection, saying, hey, I notice I'm feeling nervous, like this is more love than I've ever experienced, and I'm noticing what comes up for me is in the past, every time I got close to someone, I got scared and I got hurt and I got abandoned or this. What I want is, of course I want more love with you, of course I want more connection, more awesomeness. So, I get to believe then that, this is a safe place, and could you assist me in helping me move through and feel more safe, or could you assist me with this and creating this space, and this is the action I take. And so I just expanded the level of comfort zone I have on the amount of love that I can receive. Yet you expanded through it by experiencing awesomeness. I'm gonna move this really quickly. I have a call in a few minutes. So the thing that I want you guys to consider and question is, when we go into one of the practices I give my personal clients, is to do a check-in, to be proactive. So again, because all this stuff, this energy is happening underlying under the surface. Most people aren't aware of the micro that's happening. And that's what I see, is the micro that's happening. So when Guy and Alana are just like, hey, we have nothing going on, and then it brought up all these things for me, and should I, cancel call? Should this is like me? I'm like, oh, interesting. What's under all of that is there's a belief system that there has to be shit, or there has to be, you have to show up for me with something to look at, or this is how you get your value, or that's how you evolve. It's like, no, actually, how else are we creating these patterns coming up that are keeping us just from receiving more awesome, more awesome, more awesome, more awesome, more awesome, and how do we actually implement that? So what I want you guys to tune into, this is a practice that you can do, just a little gift that I'll give you. Something that I teach my peeps is a way of them doing a check-in. Now, if you go through my Marci Lock Mentoring Freedom audios, they're free. You get access to these. These are just one of my greatest gifts I wanted to give the world, in you getting clear on how you're meant to operate. And you hear me talk a lot about going from the mind step is really it's like I'm tickling you. It's like a tiny little baby step in actual alignment and how you're meant to operate, yet we in society have made it like it's all about the mindset. It's fucking missing the boat. It's a tiny little connection in a dot. Behind that is the cellular memory, right? It's the actual, what's actually going on in your cells and the feeling body that is how we're meant to operate and how we're meant to do things. Well, there's a whole nother level of understanding, which is the frequency. Okay, so frequency comes in clear and pure. Frequency can be, now what people mesh with it is based on our emotions. So even if you learn to go into the feeling body, we have our emotions attached to perceptions, to understandings, to projections, to stories, to identities, all these things that actually muffle up our feeling body as well, which keep us from divine aligned frequency. So what we do in a lot of our DNA activation and all these things is that's why we know within ourselves, we remove the cellular memory and we're receiving the divine frequency. Once you know that, you're like, I fucking know what this feels like, what this knowing of myself feels like. So the thing that I want to even give you is that if you go through those audios, you'll understand how you're meant to operate, and you can use this same tool, this 5 steps that I teach. This is a main basic tool all my peeps use, from baseline in my lock class groups and just starting off to all the way to my $1 million clients. It's like using the 5 steps constantly, because it's actually taking you from the subconscious to the conscious moment by moment to actually practice this. And you're going to use your feeling body, which is the cellular memory, which is the most powerful. Yeah, I want to assist you in seeing how you get to be proactive. So something that you can do is that you can whether it be every single hour, whether it be 3 times a day, whether it be a certain time of day where you're going to do a check-in with yourself. And the check-in is simply to go, what am I creating right now? So I have them, they set their alarms and the alarm goes off that it reminds them to just do a check-in. They're like, what am I creating right now? Well, how do you know what you're creating? You know what you're creating by the thoughts that you're thinking and how you feel. Okay, so your thoughts might be like, oh my God, all of a sudden I realized I was projecting into the future about that meeting. I had a client call today with one of my clients who's creating literally $1 billion deal with a mass amount of corporations. And all of a sudden she's like, well, what if they bring up this and da 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 da? And I'm like, sweetie, are you projecting right now? This is where we're jumping into the future based on our past, and we bring up all these stories. And when we break it down, we're like, oh, wait, am I even presently living in this moment? No, because most people aren't living in this moment because they're living subconsciously, and they're always in a projection of the future or thinking about the past based on the past, and they're living out of memory versus inspiration. So when we do this check-in and you're like, oh, what am I creating right now? Oh, these are my thoughts. This is just pure results oriented. What are my thoughts? Well, in these thoughts right now, what is this going to create for me? What would these thoughts produce? Wow, holy fuck, I was having thoughts about worried that this would happen, or that the meeting would go this way, or or how I should show up. Wow, I was creating shit. Results don't lie. What are you committed to? You were creating shit. Same thing. What's showing up in your body? If your body is feeling heavy, if there's resistance, if it doesn't feel good, we haven't even, most of the time we're just going through the motions. And I always say, have you stopped to make money? Instead of people are running to make money instead of stopping to make money. All these things apply when you're actually fucking present. It's pure ease. So when you tune in, what's my body expressing? And in the Marci Lock mentoring, the Freedom audios, I explain this, how you can tune in with what's even there with your body and get clear super fast. So if you're creating shit, you get right back into alignment, because now you're operating out of inspiration, not memory, not subconsciously. You, in this moment, get to go, this is what's there. Everything gets to be heard and felt and seen, because that's saying I'm worthy. All emotions, all things are okay. If I go, oh no, I can't feel that or think that, I just need to do this. You didn't fucking do anything. All you did was convince yourself with another perception or logical understanding that you should do this, which didn't clear the feeling still, and actually reaffirms the feeling in the cellular memory. And now you're just on the hamster wheel of try and struggle and force and fight, and you're creating more shit. So giving it to you clear, when you bring it back into this place, in this presence and in this moment, and you're like, okay, so what am I feeling? And we clear that, and we go, okay, so what am I really wanting? And this is it. And now I get to move forward in that thought, that perception, and all of a sudden you're back into awesomeness. So now you're being proactive on shifting shit from your life and creating awesomeness. Now this is what's fucking cool. You ready for this? Because I think I only have a couple more minutes, because I've got a call in a second. I don't even know what time it is. Somebody tell me what time it is. That would be awesome. Assist me. So what you can do is, if you see this and you go, okay, so let's look at, what if I'm experiencing awesomeness? What if you tune in, you're like, fucking my mindset is on fire, I'm thinking only good thoughts, I feel awesome, I'm in awesomeness. Well, what if right now, if you're experiencing this much awesomeness, how could I experience even more joy, more love? Thank you, Mark. More joy, more love. That means my call's in 1 minute. More joy, more love, more awesomeness, more everything, right? How could I experience even more of this right now? It's you technically do not need to do anything. You can just, all right, close your eyes, decide to feel this embrace of fucking love and badassery that you are, and be embraced by the light and the love of the people around you and all this, and be like, bing, I'm experiencing even more awesomeness. What if the awesomeness that you're in right now, you could actually up-level that to what would 50% more awesomeness feel like right now? What if it's how else could I experience more joy and love for myself right now? How could I experience more abundance, etc.? Oh, even making yourself a cup of tea, even do a little 5-minute dance group. All of that is little actually it's imprinting and taking the alignment to say, I'm fucking worthy. I get to feel awesome. This is what my norm is. Now imagine you're doing that every single hour, every single day. Now you can see just an inkling of why my peeps catapult into fucking success in their business and all these things so soon, is because we're being proactive, and we're seeing these things, we're connecting the dots, and we're literally with ease and joy and grace just accepting more and shifting them. So I'm going to leave you guys with that, because I have a client call I get to jump on real quick. I love you guys. I just want you to hear, you can actually evolve through awesomeness. The moment it doesn't have to be that shit shows up. It means that the moment you're not in awesome and you're experiencing so much awesome that something comes up that's uncomfortable is when you go, what's going on? Use those 5 steps that I teach you in the Freedom Audios. That will give you, like, that's purely the greatest, most badass tool you can implement and use in your life in learning how to be conscious and consciously responding, not subconsciously reacting. And I just want you to hear that if, like, again, this is what we want to get to. It's awesome, and you can only evolve to more. So I love you guys. Anna and I will be jumping on a little bit later. I'll share some more stuff with you. Mwah! Sending you lots of love.